especially during COVID-19. I think my fixation on my body has just been a lot heavier than it has been in the past. It's really made me realize how much body scanning I do during the day.
I'm like not walking anywhere. I'm just sitting in my house alone. I felt like I wasn't moving my body at all, and that in general doesn't make me feel great.
In quarantine, there have been things that have come up or patterns that I've noticed that I used to have that I thought I grew out of, that I'm like, oh wow, like I'm looking in a mirror so much more, and constantly like, oh, like should I have eaten that? I'm like, oh, so like there are those hot Cheetos that like I probably shouldn't have eaten the whole bag anyway.
A lot of us are spending a lot more time at home lately, with a lot more time on our hands to sit, think, and scroll. Life in a pandemic is impacting our mental and physical well-being, and the way we think about both.
All of a sudden, the world stopped.
A new wave of states issuing stay-at-home orders tonight.
Gyms shut down. Any sort of extrinsic motivation was completely lost. People stopped having any sort of accountability for showing up. There was this huge, just terror of, well, what are we gonna do?
How do you do a home workout? It was everywhere. Everyone's Instagram story posted everywhere of, influencers that have new home workout routines that you can follow and things like that. So unintentionally, I think for me specifically, the focus was on how do I stay fit at home?
Even in the midst of a pandemic, even if we're struggling and staying home and figuring out how to survive, we also have to come out of this with a six-pack and to be glowing and tan and to have better skin or whatever that looks like. I mean, heck, if I didn't have these alleged abs that I've always wanted before the pandemic, what makes me think that a global pandemic is supposed to somehow give me those results?
Some might find the 10 push-up challenge that we saw at the start of quarantine and videos on how to lose the quarantine 15 motivational. But for others, it's just plain harmful, especially if you're someone who experiences body dysmorphia.
When we're talking about body dysmorphia on the clinical disorder side of things, we're talking about significant differences in the body image versus what is in the mirror or what somebody else might see versus what your mind and eyes see. So it's really like looking in a fun mirror where all of these things are accentuated. It's like a caricature. It won't look the same for everyone, but some people may see large knees. Some people may see extra wide hips. Some people may see skin that hangs over when they sit.
I can perceive myself so differently within a given day, right? So I can look at myself in the mirror in the morning and be like, I look kind of good, cool, love that for me. And then later that day, I'll, be getting dressed up to go out or something. And suddenly I'm looking at myself and it's not like I gained 10 or 15 pounds within the day. That's not really possible as far as I know. Part of me thinks it is.
Social media has really put perfection in arm's reach. We have the invention of filters. We have the invention of body shaping apps. Prior to social media, our pool of people to compare ourselves against was smaller. Now we have the entire world to compare ourselves against. And that's a lot of pressure for people who already struggle with not feeling good enough.
I think it just reduces our bodies in really harmful ways, and it's really affected me. I happen to have a brain that looks for a lot of comparison and reassurance, external reassurance. What that looks like is constantly comparing my body and parts of my body to other women's bodies. I went through a phase where I really followed several health bloggers, fitness gurus. I was a figure skater, specifically a synchronized skater, pretty much from the age of 7 until 22. It's a sport that tends to favor leaner, taller bodies. And that's pretty much the opposite of what I am and what I was growing up.
Largely, it has been deemed a white girl's disease or a white girl's issue. It's not particular to an age group. It's not particular to a gender. It's not particular to a racial class. Anybody can experience body dysmorphia.
I don't think they look at me and say like, oh, that's my fat friend, but that's how I feel. And so it's difficult for me to like quiet that voice in my head that's like, you're not as attractive as they are. Why are they even hanging out with you? You know, maybe they don't want to hang out with you because you don't look good. Maybe you shouldn't hang out with them again until you look good enough. And that voice is so difficult for me to control. Being gay, being part of the gay community, I think is one of the biggest things that feeds my issues with my body. In the gay community, there is such an emphasis placed on how you look. How good a shape are you in? You know, how big are your muscles? Do you have abs?
I remember hearing a podcast recently. She said, it wasn't until I realized that I was never going to have a white woman's body did my relationship with my body change. And that was like a bomb went off in my brain, because I realized that I had been killing myself truly to try to have a white woman's body that I will never have. And it would be completely unrealistic and unhealthy for me to be able to maintain. But being ridiculed or teased or poked at or whatever, made fun of for having a Black woman's figure, trained my brain to think that that was shameful. And it's taken about 15 years to really correct that mindset.
I am so terrified, and I say this to Ashley all the time, of like gaining weight in the wheelchair and not being able to lose it as fast, because when you're in a wheelchair, it's harder to exercise. It is harder to move around. Clearly, we're sitting all the time. People who say like, oh, you're disabled, you don't struggle with that. It's different. Like, you actually get really nervous. And one thing with me is I'll look in the mirror and I'll see like my face. I feel like my face is fat. I've always been like, I have a fat face. And after like, you do not have a fat face. But like when I look in the mirror, I swear like it's bigger than it is.
Social media isn't going anywhere, and neither is the pandemic anytime soon. So what can we be doing to address the negative thoughts and comparisons that we may be making about our bodies every day? Seeking help from a mental health professional who specializes in body-related issues can be a great start. We can also try setting some new boundaries.
It takes some real mental work to dig in there and really figure out your own toxic patterns, your own triggers. If we have a toxic aunt or a toxic mom, we can determine when we're going to spend time with those people. We have to do the same thing with social media. Maybe for some people we have to create schedules like I only check in on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or I don't touch social media on the weekend. The other thing that I want people to really take a look at is this need for external validation. I really encourage people to do their internal work of releasing themselves and disconnecting themselves from that reliance on external validation, because that's going to continue to drive the need and the urge to follow people for comparison.
That being said, there are also some really cool things happening on social media that can help and even inspire you. They just may not be the accounts with the millions of followers or blue check marks.
There is affirming content on the internet for people who look like all different shapes, sizes, ethnicities, races, identities, and those are the people that I follow on social media.
I'm a huge supporter of following dietitians who support the HAES trend, which is health at every size, and it's really just a push for inclusivity.
My body is helping me survive a global pandemic. Whoa, goodness, I've spent how many months quarantining, body scanning, being so hard on myself, and I've never taken a moment to just be like, wow, thank you. Like, I have a body that is capable of surviving this moment up to now and keeping me safe. That's a huge privilege.
Hey everyone, Issa here. Thank you for checking out the NBCLX YouTube channel. To watch more videos, click here, and be sure to click the subscribe button here and join the NBCLX community.